Picture a figure somewhere in the deep past. Their eyes are rolled back, their body trembling not from cold but from voltage, a current of pure information pouring through them. They are not entirely there. Their body is a gateway left ajar while their consciousness travels. But travels where? For millennia. Figures like this were the pillars of their communities. They were the first doctors, the first psychologists, the first explorers. They didn't just tell stories about other worlds, they walked in them. They navigated the unseen geography of the cosmos to bring back something vital: knowledge, healing, a glimpse of the divine. The great historian of religion, Mircea Eliade, called them technicians of the sacred, masters of the ecstatic journey. But their maps were never drawn on paper. They were sung in chants, danced in rituals, and painted on the canvas of the mind. So, what happened? Why did this universal spiritual science, the original human operating system, fade into the shadows, dismissed as mere superstition? The answer is more unsettling than you think, and it might just challenge the very nature of the reality you experience every single day. What we're about to uncover isn't just about ancient rituals, it's about a fundamental human ability, a secret power we've all been conditioned to forget we possess. So how did they do it? How did one person become the designated traveler between worlds? It wasn't about belief, it was about technique. This is the core insight from scholars like Eliade. Shamanism isn't a religion, but a set of highly refined methods for inducing a controlled, purposeful, ecstatic state. It's a spiritual science with its own physics. Let's journey to the place where the very word shaman originates, the vast, unforgiving expanse of Siberia. Picture a Tungus tribesman in a candle-lit yurt, the temperature outside far below freezing. The air is thick with smoke and the smell of burning herbs. He isn't praying, he is preparing for a mission. His primary tool? The drum. That monotonous, hypnotic beat we heard earlier isn't just for rhythm. For the shaman, each beat is a step on a ladder. The drum becomes a steed, a spiritual vehicle carrying his consciousness away from his body. His goal is to climb the axis, Mundi, the world tree, the cosmic pillar that connects the three worlds, the underworld of ancestors and chthonic spirits, our middle world of everyday reality, and the upper world of celestial beings and high gods. He's not just imagining this, he is navigating it. Each journey is a targeted strike to retrieve a lost soul, consult with an ancestor, or negotiate with a nature spirit for a successful hunt. It was a matter of life and death for his community. Now let's shift our perspective thousands of miles south into the suffocating green labyrinth of the Amazon rainforest. Here the tools change, but the objective is the same. Instead of the drum being the primary vehicle, the shamans, often called pages or curanderos, work in synergy with the jungle's own intelligence. They utilize what ethnobotanists call psychoactive plants, what they call teacher plants or the vines of the soul. For them, these aren't drugs, they are conscious entities, allies that unlock the doors of perception. Through these alliances, they learn the secrets of healing, a plant-based pharmacology so complex it continues to baffle modern scientists. How did they know which of the 80,000 plant species to combine? Their answer is simple: the plants told them. But this wasn't exclusive to the so-called primitive world. Let's glance at the misty forests of ancient Europe. The Norse had their volur, powerful seeresses who would enter a trance state, often with a staff and a choir of chanters, to gaze into the threads of fate. The Celtic Druids, as described by Roman sources, were not just priests but philosophers, judges, and scientists who spent decades memorizing vast amounts of oral knowledge about the cosmos, ethics, and nature. They were the living libraries of their people. It seems that wherever humans looked up at the stars and inward at the soul, a form of this practice emerged. The methods were shockingly consistent across cultures, separated by oceans and millennia. Rhythmic drumming or rattling, chanting, fasting, long periods of isolation in nature, and controlled breathing. These aren't random mystical acts. Modern neuroscience is just beginning to understand what these ancient technicians knew intuitively. These activities dramatically alter brainwave patterns. They shift consciousness from the beta wave state of alert, everyday thinking, to the alpha, theta, and even delta waves associated with deep meditation, hypnosis, and dreaming. They were literally retuning their own brains to pick up a different signal. Of course, this wasn't a casual hobby. This power was immense, and with it came immense responsibility and danger. The shaman was both revered and feared. They could heal, but they could also curse. They could find game, but they could also lead a tribe to ruin with a faulty prophecy. It's safe to say they didn't have a suggestion box for cosmic complaints. This was a high-stakes profession where a single mistake in the spirit world could have devastating consequences in the material one. Already intrigued? Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because the real question isn't just how they did it, but why we stopped. If this was humanity's original spiritual operating system, a universal tool for understanding our place in the cosmos, what could possibly have been powerful enough to make us forget it? What if this knowledge didn't just fade away but was deliberately dismantled? Here's where the story takes a sharp, unexpected turn. The great forgetting of this spiritual science wasn't a simple conquest of one belief by another. The ecstatic impulse of humanity was far too powerful to simply vanish. Instead, it transformed. For centuries after the dawn of the Christian era, the desire for ecstatic union with the divine was not extinguished. It was rechanneled. Look at the mystics of the Middle Ages, figures like Hildegard von Bingen, Meister Eckhart, or Teresa of Avila. They were not shamans negotiating with nature spirits, but their techniques of deep prayer, contemplation, and asceticism led them to ecstatic states so profound they described them as a divine union, a journey into the interior castle of the soul. Their goal shifted from the world tree to God, but the vertical ascent, the journey beyond the senses, remained. In the Islamic world, the Sufis, with their whirling dances and chants, pursued fana, the annihilation of the self into the divine presence. The path was different, but the technology of ecstasy was still alive. So, what truly caused the Great Schism? The real break was far more recent and far more radical. It was a revolution in the very definition of reality. Thinkers like René Guénon called it the rise of the reign of quantity. It was the birth of a world where only that which could be measured, weighed, and counted was considered real. This new materialistic worldview, born from the Enlightenment, declared war not on a specific religion, but on the symbolic mind itself. The ancient understanding that a tree is both physical wood and a living symbol of the cosmos was deemed irrational. The forest was no longer an enchanted place of spirits and meaning. It became a collection of timber. The river was no longer a living entity. It became a hydroelectric resource. The world, in the words of the sociologist Max Weber, became disenchanted. This wasn't progress. It was an amputation. We amputated the symbolic, the sacred, and the metaphysical from our reality. In doing so, we created the modern ideologies of materialism and nihilism, which whisper that the universe is a meaningless accident and we are nothing more than complex biological machines. This is the true source of the poison. It wasn't that one religion replaced another, it's that a worldview that denies the spirit altogether began its hostile takeover of the human mind. This leads to the mind-blowing twist. What if the ecological crisis, the epidemic of anxiety and meaninglessness, are not political or economic problems at their root? What if they are symptoms of this deep metaphysical illness, the consequence of living in a cosmos we have deliberately stripped of its soul? The ancient shaman knew his life depended on a respectful relationship with a living universe. We in our hubris believed we could thrive while treating it as a corpse. The ultimate secret, then, is that the wall we must climb isn't the one to the spirit world. It's the wall modernity built inside our own consciousness, separating our rational mind from the deep, intuitive, symbolic heart that still remembers how to speak the language of the cosmos. The journey into the shaman's world isn't about looking backward with nostalgia. It's about looking inward, right now, past the static of our disenchanted age. The drumbeat, the chant, the vision, these aren't relics. They are echoes of a capability hardwired into our own nervous system, a key to a door that modern ideology has tried to convince us doesn't even exist. Modern science, in its own way, is bumping into the limits of its own materialist paradigm. Neuroscientists mapping the brain in deep meditative states are, perhaps unknowingly, charting the foothills of the mystic's interior mountain. We are seeing a cautious rediscovery of the inner world, but we still often lack the key insight of the ancients, that the soul is not a metaphor but an operational reality. This isn't about abandoning reason, it's about integration. It's about healing the great amputation and understanding that the human being is a bridge between matter and spirit. The true technicians of the sacred understood this. They created a living science of consciousness that provided meaning, coherence, and a profound sense of place in a living, intelligent cosmos. So the real mystery isn't what they did in the past, it's what we are capable of right now. The world tree, the interior castle, the journey to God, these are all maps of consciousness. And those maps still exist within each of us. The journey to the other worlds is the ultimate inner pilgrimage. What knowledge lies dormant in your own psychic geography, waiting for you to turn your attention inward? The greatest hunt is not for lost artifacts, but for the recovery of our own complete nature. The ancient paths suggest that the answers to our deepest questions might not be found in a new technology, but in remembering the timeless truth of who we are. And that's our hunt for now. A deep dive into a world where science and spirit were one. A wild mix of documented history from researchers and philosophers and tantalizing what-ifs based on bibliographical sources. What do you think? Is recovering the symbolic mind the key to our future? Liked this journey? Hit subscribe for more mysteries waiting to be uncovered.